So, hi Shreyans, how are you today and where are you dialing from?
I'm doing well. I'm dialing in from Mumbai, India.
Is it hot over there in India?
Oh, it's raining. It's raining cats and dogs right now.
Oh, it's actually the same here in Poland, so not that hot. Great. Thank you for participating in my hot seat session where we help companies and businesses all over the globe to address their blind spots, gain competitive edge, and foster a sense of community with the help of our mentors. So, first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself and your expertise.
Sure. So thank you for inviting me here. Um, so in terms of my expertise, so I think over a period of time of discovery, I realized that my biggest passion is to help people grow. Right. So I'm a leadership coach. Most of my work is with venture funded startups right now in India. And what I do is I help teams on three aspects. So I help individuals become better leaders, help them make their teams more effective, and overall help them make their organizations more effective. So whatever is needed for all of those three, I help them in same.
Great. So let's discuss leadership today. First of all, it's my favorite question. What is the biggest misconception about leadership that you can recall? Maybe a
So
couple of them.
sure. So I don't know if I'll call this a misconception, but I would definitely call this a very different way of looking at things. So, when we imagine a leader, generally the idea is somebody who has a lot of charisma, right? Somebody who's like leading from the front and a go-getter. But not all leaders are like that. In fact, a lot of effective leaders don't lead from the front at all. What they do is they bring together a team of great people and enable them to lead. And themselves, they are in the background, and whenever somebody's failing, the leader is there to support at the back. So they lead from the back instead of leading from the front. And not all of them have a lot of charisma. I mean, what they have is a very consistent drive to make their organizations excel. Right. So you might actually find them to be more humble than the general notion of a leader. So somebody who is humble, who is here to serve, and who is here to create leaders rather than be the macho hero, the alpha. That's not necessarily how a leader is.
This is a very interesting point, right? So maybe since you've coached so many companies, maybe you can tell me, one or two interesting or unusual cases that you've helped the client to solve, maybe a problem that you've helped to solve.
Sure. So one of the clients that I was working with some time ago, they had a very interesting issue. So there were these two co-founders who had set up this amazing organization. They had raised venture capital multiple rounds, and suddenly they were in a place where they were constantly in a space of conflict. Right. So one of the things that I realized when I was working with them is that you know we when we start something of our own, there is this big vision, this big goal. We want to achieve something crazy, right? And people forget that in the middle of the journey, and they get so lost in each other. He did this to me, he did that to me, and in the small little events, people get so stuck that they forget the bigger vision, the bigger purpose. So I think one of the things that I help them do is kind of understand why they started this in the very first place, go back to the basics, and then help them arrive at also some pragmatic solutions to the current problems they were facing, so that they could come back once again in tune with the chemistry that they initially had. So now they are slowly and steadily, they have been working over it and building on it. So thus far things are good for them. Yeah. So that has been a very interesting story.
Actually, I actually agree. I think it's one of the main problems of a lot of startups when two people start them. At first it's like a collaboration, everything is going well, but once you become successful, your views they can divide, and it's really hard to keep the focus on where you started from, right?
Absolutely. I absolutely agree. And sometimes if you see, the differences are over small little things, right? If it was some major dramatic difference of vision altogether, that's a different story. But sometimes the vision is still the same. Both people want the company to succeed in the same direction, but these are some small little eccentricities that each of us have. People get so lost in those eccentricities that they miss out on the bigger picture.
Absolutely. So let's dive deeper into this conflict resolution. Maybe you can tell me some common mistakes that, executive or business leaders make when it comes to, managing conflicts within their organizations or teams.
So they make a lot of mistakes, like every human does. But some of the common ones that I've observed is, I think one is the ability to give each other feedback. I think the moment you see that somebody is going off track, right, instead of sitting together, figuring out a mechanism where you can share the mistakes that we are doing, what we, instead of doing that, often people do, they kind of make an assumption. Okay, so let's say Kate has made a mistake. So instead of telling Kate that, asking Kate, why did you do this and what was, like, where are you coming from? I just assume that Kate must have thought like this. That is why she did this. She should have been more careful. And we start making a small little judgments, and slowly and steadily over time, it starts building up. Right. And then when it bursts out, now suddenly it's two judgmental people talking. But had we been transparent and authentic with each other, sharing with each other through the whole journey, then this would not have happened in the very first place. So this is one, right? Another thing, another mistake that leaders often do is, so let's say we are having a discussion around strategy, okay? And you have a particular idea, I have a particular idea. Now, both of us tend to, like, if it's two founders, they are going to be strong-headed, right? So both of them are strong-headed on the idea. Then it's important to sit, understand why, instead of saying this was my idea and my idea, let's see which is better from the organizational perspective. So when your ego comes in between, saying this was my idea, how did this person reject my idea? And so ego is one of those biggest problems that happens, right? And sometimes it happens because individuals don't sufficiently reflect on themselves. They don't even ask this question at times, what if I am wrong here? And what if the other person is right? So just coming from the space of the other person is right in his place. For sure, there must be a logic why Kate is saying what she is saying. And there must be a logic of why Shreyans is saying what he's saying. When we operate from that kind of a space, then it becomes very easy to trust. Right? Otherwise, ego comes in and says, this is my idea. How could Kate say this to me? Yeah. And then it goes into a downward spiral. So the second big problem is ego. One is lack of communication. Second is ego. And the third problem is, okay, let's say we have a disagreement, right? And then finally we decide, okay, we'll go with Kate's idea. Your idea is, let's say, we for now assume Kate's idea is what we are going for. I may not agree with it. But the moment even if I disagree, but the moment we say this is the idea we're going forward with, then I should disagree and commit. Okay, I have disagreed with the idea, but now we are committed and I'm committed to make Kate's idea successful. Till I don't get into that space of commitment, anything that doesn't go right in the process, I will go and tell Kate, see, I had told you my idea was a better idea. And then again, it starts getting into the space of conflict. So this ability to disagree, but commit to one idea, whatever action you take up. So I think that is one more thing that leaders somehow struggle to do.
It's actually the first time that, a mentor mentioned this problem of ego, because I absolutely agree. I feel like a lot of organizations, they're so focused on the idea that they forget about the customer and the value that they bring to the customer. So this is the first thing that you should be actually pay attention to. If you bring value to the customer, you should agree that it's a good idea. It's something that you can work with. Absolutely. So now let's turn to the positive side. And you, as a proud Gleek mentor, what strategies or steps can you advise, leaders to take or to use to not make these mistakes? Maybe you can, tell us some, a glimpse of your coaching strategies or something.
Sure. So I think one of the things that leaders see, so I think more than just a process or strategy, this is a game of mindset, right? And one of the mindsets where leaders should operate from is, I am right and the other person is also right. The moment I operate from a space of, I am right, but you are wrong, that's where you start creating a divide. Or even if it comes from the space of the other person is generally right, I'm always wrong, that also creates a sense of inferiority and difference. But when we come from this space that, okay, there is a reason why I believe in something, there must be definitely a reason why Kate believes in what she believes. So she's right. I'm sure she's right in her place. I'm sure I'm right in my place. Let's figure out, why are we thinking what we are thinking? And then when you come together, often you will end up with a third solution, which is better than both their individual solutions, right? So this space that you come from should be a space of faith, belief in the other person. And even when you manage teams, right? So I've seen two types of leaders. One type of a leader is somebody who says that when my team member performs, then I start having faith in that person. The second type of leader says, I have faith in the person and I'm sure with this faith, like the person will perform. And that faith enables the person to perform. Like if you've observed in generally with people, those people who have faith in our abilities, we tend to do so much better in their presence, right? So faith should be a presumption, not a conclusion, right? I'm sure that when you have faith in 10 people, maybe two of them will fall flat or they'll make mistakes, but the 8 will succeed so well that they will definitely compensate for those 2 errors of judgment, right? So beginning and coming from the space of faith is absolutely critical. So I think if we can bring that kind of a mindset shift, that is going to be a huge win for people who are starting up, especially people who are in startups. They are generally very young founders, yeah, especially in the Indian ecosystem. So they're just fresh out of college. They've learned a lot in terms of their education, in terms of their management degrees, but when it comes to managing things on the field, working with people, they struggle a lot. Right. And the major struggle is, how do I deal with somebody whom I'm disagreeing with and the person is not agreeing with me? So that's where, this mindset that the other person is right in their own place. Let me just have faith and try and understand where they're coming from. I think that itself solves so many things. So this is one of the biggest missing pieces of the puzzle, I feel, for startup founders.
All right, so let's recap. So in order to effectively solve conflicts, you first of all need to have faith, right? And you need to be open-minded. Something else? Or these are like the main qualities?
This is the broad mindset. But having said that, I think there are many methods also. I mean, you can use certain processes, like for example, having a very healthy feedback process, right? So when people think of feedback and they say, okay, well, I want to give you feedback, most often I've seen people just end up giving criticism, and criticism is not feedback, right? So feedback is something where you are able to acknowledge the positives. Firstly, when you give feedback, you have to come from a space of serving, not from a space of venting. Most people give feedback to vent out. That's not the right way of giving feedback, right? If I'm giving feedback to Kate, the purpose of that feedback is so that after this, when she goes back, she reflects on it, she works on it, she comes across and there's growth in her. The purpose of feedback is that. And the person who's receiving feedback should come from the space of gratitude, saying that it's this person is willing to criticize me, knowing that it might cost him our relationship just because I grow. Right. So when we receive feedback from a space of openness, right, and from a space of gratitude, and when you give from a space of service, that changes things a lot. And when you give feedback, you always also mention the good things that the other person is doing. It's not a criticism session, it's not a venting session, it's about constructive growth, right? So unfortunately, I have seen people say, I want to give you some feedback, and then they will just give 5 criticisms. And that too, I mean, sometimes they do it over text, which is like the worst way you could give feedback to somebody, right? Because you don't understand the tone of the text. The other person assumes the tone of the text, which is just so wrong. So you meet one-on-one. If that's not possible, you have a video call, and then you give feedback in a structured manner. I think that can help people resolve a lot of conflicts. And then, of course, sometimes you come to a space where you're finding it very difficult to kind of manage the conflicts between the two of you. Then you can possibly get somebody trusted into the system, right? You get a leadership coach or somebody with whom you can speak out what your challenges are. And the leadership coach also has to operate from a space of getting people together and helping them resolve the differences, unless of course they have reached a point of no solution. But most often than not, you can kind of solve a lot of those problems.
All right, this is such a great piece of advice at the end. So again, as we're wrapping up now, I'd like to thank you, Shreyans, for sharing your knowledge and insights. I love discussing this, angle of conflict resolution within teams, and how leaders should not be just leaders, but they should understand their teams and be able to lead even from background. I absolutely love it. So again, thank you so much. And if our audience enjoyed this conversation as much as I did, I highly encourage you to see the caption and learn how you can work with Shreyans one-on-one to solve your problems. So thank you, Shreyans, and have a good day.
Thank you, Kate, for inviting me. You too have a good day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Bye.